Howdy, this is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Today we're going to be organizing For Science, designed by R. Eric Roos and published by Gray Fox Games. Now this is a fully sleeved Kickstarter version of the game that includes all expansions, promos, and all content for the game, all stored in the core box with no lid lift. With all that being said, if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please make sure that you do. It is the best way to help us grow. Let's get started organizing For Science. First off, we'll lift the lid here and you'll see that we have the rulebook draped on top. Underneath the rulebook, you'll have the main game board, which has room for all of your different diseases, mutations, and whatever your current labs you're working on are. Up next, we have our You Can Do It guide, which I think is extremely useful for getting players comfortable with creating those block shapes and learning how the connections work. So I strongly recommend you keep this in the box. Even if you've played the game a couple times, it's really helpful for new players. And lastly, we have the rulebook for the For Science Sci-Hard expansion. Up next, you're going to have the cardboard cutout here, and this is actually from the block container in that base game. We're actually going to just cut out the top of this so that it's nice and flat, but it also is going to keep your rulebook and everything else nice and flat on top and make sure nothing gets bent. So use this to kind of protect your different components and separate it into two different sections. Underneath the cardboard divider, you have our game board here. That's going to have all your wasted design cards, as well as a reminder that when this third space is covered, you'll receive a penalty. So you'll have that drapes on the top here. We'll then use two of these plastic board game piece containers to hold a variety of components. First off, in this one here, we'll have all of your different markers in the two different types for your different progress for the different types of colors of disease, as well as these number markers to show how many of these you actually need to discover to win the game based on the player count. There's also going to be some varied components in here based on the scientist that you decide to choose during the game. I like how these look a little bit like Petri dishes, and I'll leave a link in the description below where you can find these containers for yourself. We'll have a second container as well that's going to hold all of your call-out rings. Now's a good time to talk about the two distinct sections of the box. On this left side, you're going to have all of your blocks. When you're deciding to play, make sure to pick out one of these containers of blocks. You either have the colored ones here that include the pieces from the Sci-Hard expansion, these stars, or you're going to be using these monochrome pieces, which have the same amount of blocks. They're just a little bit harder to tell the color differences. So you can decide what you want to do, and you'll keep one inside here and bring out the other. But you'll have the Kickstarter exclusive monochrome as well as the colored blocks all on that left side there. And on the right side here, we'll have all of our universal vaccine tiles. This is actually from the insert that comes in the game, but really the insert was not that useful. But the spaces to actually store the tiles was. So I actually cut out the different pieces here, and now they're really nice trays that you can simply just take out, place in the center of the table, and they're ready to go. I really like the way that these universal tile cutouts work, and you'll do that for all of the different types. You have your small rhombi here, your cool trapezoids, and then lastly, your more awkward sized pieces here with a silica gel packet for freshness. So you'll have those in their different containers, and you'll just lay them out on the table, and at the end of each game, you'll shuffle them and place them back in, so you're ready to go right away. That brings us to all of the cards in the game. We have two different types of cards. First off, we have our standard size cards. These will be your mutations, your design cards, etc. And you'll use the Ultra Pro Matte standard size sleeves. These are the ones that we use, and I really recommend them. I love the matte finish on them, and I love how easy they are to shuffle. So these are the standard size sleeves we use. Once again, links in the description below. And for the large character cards as well as the reference cards, we have these super large card sleeves from Sleeve Kings that we use. Once again, links in the description below. When it comes to storing all of the cards, you're going to decide how you want to store them yourselves. Now, the way we've done it is we actually have all of the design cards here from the core game first, because this game's one of its big features is that it's tiered based on the difficulty and challenge that you want to play. So we just have all of the core components first, and then based on how you want to increase the difficulty, we have the expansion content in the back here. But we'll have your design cards, as well as your mutation cards. And more mutation cards and disease cards. Basically, all of those standard cards here will just go in that large section. And as I said before, it's kind of up to you how you want to organize these. And then on the back of all of these cards, you'll have all of your expansion content denoted by this little icon in the corner here. So these have the more challenging symbols that you'll be using to build, as well as more challenging diseases that incorporate those symbols and mutations, etc. So once again, we keep these separate because when we're ready to add that difficulty, you can, but if you really want to, you can shuffle these in right from the get-go. It's totally up to you. Behind all the standard size card sleeves, you have your variability markers for the different labs. These will give you different minimum lengths, different abilities, and different reward payouts. So you can shuffle these and place them as you see fit. And once again, it's based on the difficulty that you want to play. You may want to play a couple of the base game modes first without actually using these, but we'll store them in those two columns in the back there. And that brings us to our organization boards and large character cards. Now these organization boards we actually do not end up using, and they mainly stay in the box just for support for the cards and everything else that's in there. These will store your different cards in their matching discard piles, but we found that these are more of a hassle to actually set up and organize, so we don't actually end up using them a lot. But they're here if you do like them. And next to the boards, we have all of the character cards. Now, these stars indicate that they are starting characters with more simplistic abilities, but then you get on to the more advanced characters. And you can use these as you see fit. Once again, also keep in mind that some of these are restricted based on the number of players that you can actually use, and that's denoted by this little icon in the corner here. It tells you when you can actually use them. And on the back here, you have all of your reference cards. These are going to give you specific examples of what you do when you design, build, etc. And then variants if you decide to use no app, or if you decide if you want to throw events into the game. I really like how this works here, and I think the information is displayed pretty dang nicely on these. And all that's left in the box here are those monochrome blocks, and once again, if you're using the color ones, you'll probably just leave these in the box. Or if you're looking for a more difficult variant, you can use these as well. And that's everything in the box. Let's go ahead and pack it up. We'll go ahead and start with our monochrome blocks and place them on this left side here, followed by our cardboard card holders, as well as our different character cards and reference cards. We'll then take our 2 stacks of these variable lab upgrades, and then we'll place our standard cards in here with all of our expansion content, and then all of our core game, design, mutation, disease, and event cards. Underneath that, you'll place your large universal vaccine tiles, followed by your medium ones, and then your smaller rhombi. We'll put a silica gel packet in there for freshness, and then our 2 containers that look a little like Petri dishes. And then we'll put all of our colored blocks in here, moving the rhombi out of the way so that we can make sure that it fits in here nice and flat, kind of squeezing things and making sure that everything fits nice and loose. We don't want a lot of pressure on the components, and I think this does a great job with keeping everything nice and level. We'll then take the wasted design cards board and then cover it with the large cardboard divider here. We'll then put in your main game board, the expansion rulebook, as well as the base rulebook and the You Can Build It sheet draped here on top to keep it nice and flat. And that is organizing for science. If you have any questions about what you saw here, please let me know down in the comments below. How do you organize your copy of For Science? Are you wary of real-time games, or does this game's accessibility give you a great entry into the genre? We'd love to hear what you think. But thank you so much for watching SideGame Strong.